Have you ever wished that there was more time during the day? Or maybe you wanted to be more productive, but you didn't know how? Or what about developing your subordinates and directs? Have you ever tried to figure out how to go about doing that and just failed? Well, stay tuned because we're going to talk about these topics in this video. Hi, and welcome to the Unnatural Leader, where we believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned and not an attribute with which you're born. I'm Andy Glenn, and my goal with these videos is to provide you with an easy-to-access resource that will help you develop the skills and tools to be a better leader. In this video, we're going to be talking about one of the most important tools that a leader has, and that is delegation. Are you wondering, what does delegation have to do with any of those things in productivity and development? Well, hold on, because I'm about to tell you. When we delegate, we're going to pass on to a subordinate or a direct report a huge amount of the work that we have to get done, freeing us up to be able to focus on more important things while simultaneously helping them develop and build the skills that they need for their next position. Why is it so important that we delegate? Well, here's why. If you're the leader in an organization, there are certain things that only you can do, which means that if you're not doing those things and focus on them, you are screwing up big time. The tasks that you're going to delegate are going to be able to be done by you or the person to whom you're delegating. It might stretch them a little bit, and you might be able to do it better, but that's no excuse for you to be doing them if somebody else could do it reasonably well. If you're wasting your time doing those tasks, you're costing your company money, and you're costing yourself precious time, which is so much more important than money. Here's an example to help illustrate. Let's say that you make $100,000 a year, which comes out to roughly $50 an hour. Now you have an employee that's only making about $50,000 a year, which works out to be about $25 an hour. So if you're spending just 1 hour on this project, that's $25 that your company is paying you that it doesn't need to be paying you. But let's face it, nothing takes an hour anymore. But the time it takes isn't really the point here. The point is that you are costing your company at least $25 an hour. But wait, it's actually more than that. The real cost to your company is actually twice of that $25. And here's how that math works out, right? Your employee gets paid $25 an hour. They're not doing anything right now except playing solitaire because you haven't given them a task to do. So that's $25 right there. Add to that $25 the fact that you're spending $50 to do something that should only cost the company $25. So that's another 25, which now we're at 50. Plus, let's not even talk about the other projects that you could be working on that only you can do. So at a minimum, you're costing your company $50 per hour, and more likely $75, $100, $150 per hour in this scenario alone that you shouldn't be costing your company at all. So how do we decide then what we're going to delegate? Well, that should be fairly simple and fairly obvious at this point in time. You're going to delegate anything that you don't have to do and that you're not the only person that can do. As I mentioned earlier, there are going to be certain tasks that you and only you can perform. So those are the tasks that you're going to focus on, and you're going to delegate as much else as possible. Now, maybe you're concerned about overloading your directs and your subordinates, and I get it. But here's the secret. You're going to teach them how to delegate too. Sure, if everybody's delegating the important stuff down, things are going to get dropped. But you know what? Those things that are going to get dropped need to get dropped because they're trivial and they're not important to you. There's actually limited bandwidth in each of us to get things done. Peter Drucker says that the effective executive focuses only on one thing. Now, I'm not going to go that extreme. I think that we need to be able to take all of these priorities, this overload of information, this overload of demands, and be able to prioritize down to 3, maybe 5 tasks or things that we're going to focus on. Things that don't support those 3 to 5 things, they need to get dropped. They need to get thrown out. They have no part in your organization. So I'm hoping at this point in the video that you see that A, you're not overloading your subordinates and directs, and B, the importance on why we're delegating and prioritizing. But just to reiterate, anything that can be done reasonably well by somebody other than you needs to be done by them to free you up to focus on the things that only you can do and that are truly important and not just ankle biters or things that are done out of routine. So how do we actually delegate? Well, if you remember in the one-on-one basics episode, I mentioned that that's a perfect opportunity to delegate tasks. But some things can't wait until that weekly meeting. And regardless of whether it falls in that meeting or it's one of those pop-ups that has to happen a lot quicker, I would suggest following these steps. First, you're going to approach your subordinate or your direct and say, hey Dan, I need your help. So by telling them that you need their help, you're going to give them a little bit of an ego stroke, and that's perfectly fine. People want to feel needed, they want to feel helpful. And if you go back to another earlier episode, I talk a little bit about how when you ask for help, you are more likely to get help in future instances as well, not just in the immediate. So you're going to say, hey Dan, I need some help. The next thing that you're going to ask is a question. Can you do X, Y, or Z? Dan, I need some help. Can you file the market report on X company? Now maybe Dan's going to come back immediately and say, sure, I got it. Maybe he's already done this market report, or maybe he's already seen it, or he has some idea of how to do it. So he's going to take it and he's going to run with it. If, however, he hems and haws, no worries yet. The next thing is to kind of explain a little bit about what the project entails. So if you say, hey Dan, I need some help, can you file the market report on X company? He comes back and he says, well boss, I don't really know what it is. All you have to do is say, hey look, it's really easy. You're just going to go pick it up from admin. You're going to make sure that everything looks correct in it, double check those numbers based on the work that you and Mary have already done. And then you're just going to take it back and upload it into the server. At this point in time, hopefully that's reassured him and he's feeling a little bit better. And then you can ask again, can I count on you to do this? At which point in time, more likely than not, Dan's going to say yes. But what if Dan says no? Well, the first thing, it's okay, right? You asked a question, and if the answer comes back as no, you have to accept it, right? We're stepping away from our positional power here, and we're starting to build our personal power, which is so much more effective in the long run. So if he says no big deal. We're going to take it. We're going to say, okay, got it, Dan. Thanks anyway. However, this is an opportunity to give some feedback to Dan, whether it's immediate feedback or you hold it until that one-on-one, doesn't really matter. But you're going to go and you're going to take that project to another subordinate or another direct. You're going to take it to Mary and do the same thing. Hey, Mary, can you help me out? I need your help. Will you file this report for me? We never ask the question unless we're willing to accept the answer that they give us. And sometimes it's no. Now, having said that, there are certainly going to be long-term repercussions if they say no. If it becomes a pattern, you're going to provide feedback immediately. You're going to provide feedback in that one-on-one. You're going to start reviewing those instances where Dan consistently says no to anything or any time that you come to him and ask him to take a project on. And that's going to reflect long-term in his performance evaluations. But again, that's fine. It's nothing to get worked up about. We're trying to rely on building that personal brand power with our subordinates, which again is going to be so much more effective in the long term. So now that we've delegated this project to somebody, what's next? Well, I think we need to make sure that we're going to follow up, and we need to outline that probably sooner rather than later. So when we give that project to Dan or Mary and they take it and they're starting to run with it, if it's going to be a long-term project, you can say, hey, Dan, I'm going to expect updates in our weekly one-on-ones, or hey, if it's even longer than that, hey, Dan, once a month, once every other week, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this project specifically. So while we're talking about delegation, there's two tendencies that I'd like to talk about. The first is that as leaders, we tend to delegate work, but not the reporting of the work. I think that comes down to a concern about control and risk and a little bit of insecurity, which goes something like this. Hey, Bob, I need you to do this report, but don't worry, I'm going to report to the chairman about it in our meeting. And so you're going to brief the work that somebody else somebody else has done, not knowing what's gone into that work, not verifying it, not being sure that the work is correct. Rather than doing that, the lower risk is to let your subordinate brief and do the reporting while you do the work. So that's the first tendency that I see, and I think we need to fight that trend and that tendency as much as possible. Let your subordinates do the reporting. It's far more developmental for them to sit and brief to senior executives and senior leaders in whatever organization they're in. They get that contact, which also lets the senior person, sometimes it's a senior rater or somebody that's doing evaluations on your subordinates in some regard. And so they're getting that contact. They are seeing what your subordinates are doing, and they are going to feel more reassured about you as a leader and about your subordinates. That's tendency number one. The second tendency that I see a lot is that subordinates will come back to their leaders and they will say, "Hey, Bob, I can't do this. Here you go. I don't have time for this." And they will try and put the monkey back on your shoulders. And again, you need to fight that. You need to say, "Hey, what resources do you need? I will help you direct you towards those resources, and I will help you line them up. But this is your project at this point, and you need to finish it, Dan." So I think delegation is less scary than it sometimes seems. And again, there's three reasons why we do it, or three costs if we don't do it. The first is that we're costing our company money. The second is that we're costing our directs an opportunity to be developed. And the third is we're costing ourselves time. And that's probably the most important. So delegation is certainly important from that regard. It's easy to do. It's four steps. The first is, "Hey, I need some help." The second is, "Will you do X, Y, or Z?" If they hem and haw at that point in time, step 3 is to come back and say, "Hey, look, it's not a big deal. All it's going to involve is ABC." And then the fourth is, again, a question: "Can I count on you to do this?" So again, by asking them, you're getting their buy-in, and you're using your personal power as opposed to your positional power, which is going to long-term be so much more important to you as a leader. And then you're going to fight those two tendencies, which are the tendency to report what your subordinates have done for work, rather than flipping it around, letting them do the reporting, whereas you're double checking, at least verifying the work that they've done, which gives them contact with senior leaders. Is going to help develop them even more. And then the second tendency that you're going to avoid is allowing your subordinates and directs to come back and put this monkey back on your shoulders. You're going to fight that as best you can. So I hope you've learned a little bit about delegation here. I hope that it's going to help you in the long term, free up some of your time, and make sure that you're not costing your company unnecessarily money, and it's going to again free you up to focus on the important things that only you can do as a leader.